My name is Average Joe, and I'm a proud geek with expertise in movies, superheroes, and animation.
And my name is Dr. What, and I'm a total nerd, but you wouldn't know it if you met me. My expertise is in mathematics, history, of course medicine, and all things nerddom.
Our mission is to bring nerd culture to the masses
by putting it all under the microscope. Welcome to the Bat Jar Podcast.
Movies, comics, graphic novels, TV, cartoons, animation, nerds are geeks, entertainment culture. Hear it on the Bat Jar, Nerdy Power. Nerds and geeks, come gather around the scene. Come and join us in the Bat Jar. Come and tune into Average Joe and his team. Lots of room here in the Bat Jar. When the newest nerdy news drops, these podcast pals put it under the scope. DC, Marvel, Disney, Star Wars, cinematic, multiverses, mega Christmas, strangest franchise. Hear it on the Bat Jar, Nerdy Power.
Hello there, and welcome to the Bat Jar Podcast, where we put nerd and geek culture under the microscope. It is later than we normally would record, not just time of day, but also close to release. This is probably being recorded less than 12 hours before it's going to be published. So I just got back from a wedding in another city, so I'm a little tired. So if people are kind of picking up on a lack of energy, it's not because I'm not excited about what we're talking about today. It's purely just a matter of not sleeping as much and sitting on an airplane and all that fun stuff. But that's no reason to not be excited about what we're talking about today or the special guest who's with us today. So I will reintroduce to everyone our special guest for tonight, Dee Dee.
Hey, hello.
You've been on the show before. I think the last time was for Outlander.
Yes, I think.
And is it still Droughtlander season right now?
It is until February next year when they release the new season. So, not too much longer.
How have you survived? Because this is supposed to be a long Droughtlander, right?
This
many
one's
months.
a whole year. It's basically like the last season ended February last year, or this 2019, and then it's not coming back till mid-February 2020. So, what have I done? I've listened to the soundtrack. I got an Outlander
soundtrack, the score.
Yeah, it's beautiful music. I got an custom Outlander shirt made for myself. Yes, I'll show you. I'm pretty proud of myself. I'd say you're gonna ask me what's the nerdiest thing I've done.
Yes.
Since the last saw you, that's it. I got.
Did you order it online or?
No, I had a friend of mine as a seamstress, and I saw this online company made Outlander fabric, so I asked her if she would make one for me if I ordered the fabric. So she did.
Wow.
It was beautiful, and it was very expensive. So.
Speaking of sewing, I got this hat while I was in this other city, and I wanted to get your opinion of it. I've totally put this on sideways. Hold on a second.
Can you see?
Okay, wait. Yes, I can actually see. So Dee Dee, for our listeners at home, can you describe for them what you're looking at right now?
You look like you're a reindeer-fied villain from Home Alone. Okay. Like, you've got a red nose and antlers, but he's got like a balaclava pulled over his face.
And there's little sunglasses here.
Yeah, and you can see through the sunglasses here.
I can. There's like mesh.
It's pretty special. Don't leave it on for a second. I'm going to take a picture. You can put this in your show notes.
I couldn't. No
one will see you. No one will know who you are.
I couldn't help but buy this because the store was having a 40% off sale on all Christmas items.
It's not even Christmas yet.
I know, but and the hat was only $12 regular price, and I was like, I can't not. And then if you pull this up here,
oh dear,
it says "oh dear," but with the deer.
DEER. Yes.
So anyway,
oh dear is very appropriate.
Show and tell is always a great thing to do on an audio podcast. So this week we are indeed talking about Frozen 2 or Frozen 11 or Frozen II. If you don't know how to read Roman numerals, perhaps you would interpret this as the 11th Frozen.
Or 2 lowercase l's.
Ooh, Frozen ol. There we go. We obviously can't just dive right into talking about Frozen 2 without talking about the first Frozen movie. It came out 6 years ago, which seems strange for me to come to grips with because I've just been inundated with Frozen seemingly forever.
Yeah.
For the first time in forever, I feel like I've because just everywhere I go, and I say this because I know like a lot of families who have kids who are really into Frozen merchandise and they love singing the songs, but even just walking on public, like it seems to be like the biggest thing on kids' clothes, backpacks, you name it. So it's kind of weird to think it's still a relatively new thing.
Yeah, I mean, I have a 4-year-old girl, and she's obviously obsessed with Frozen. And even 6 years later, it's super easy for me to find costumes, clothes, coloring books. Like Frozen has been, I feel like it's a mainstay of the culture now. Like it's something that's always going to be around because it was such a huge film in 2013 that it's just really made its mark in animation and cinema.
Frozen actually came out at that point when I wasn't going to see new Disney movies. It wasn't like high on my priority list.
Mm-hmm.
So I totally kind of missed the initial buzz around the movie, and it was only because one of my neighbors told me I looked like one of the characters that I actually eventually saw the film. And it was like, the film came out end of November. I think I saw it mid-January. Mm-hmm. And by that point, they were re-releasing it with the sing-along version.
Oh.
So every time one of the songs came up, there were subtitles on the screen.
And were people singing along?
And people were singing along. So you can imagine my first experience with the film kind of being surrounded by people who had already seen the movie and were just enjoying the songs.
Mm-hmm.
But I do remember being impressed with the movie because in the way the story kind of plays out, it subverts a lot of expectations for what you consider a Disney princess movie.
Yeah, and I really it's been 6 years, so can we do spoilers on
Yeah, of course.
Frozen original?
Come on, guys.
I saw it with a friend of mine from work, probably the beginning of January. Like it had already been out for a couple months, and I left feeling like, oh, it was a lot better than I thought it was going to be. Like I was pleasantly surprised that it wasn't bad. And I really liked the plot twist with Hans.
I was actually genuinely surprised by
that.
that.
It was like an actually good plot twist. Like I didn't see it coming, and I'm an adult. Like my kids didn't see it coming the first time they saw it. They were like, "What? Hans is the villain?" Like,
which is apparently the character I looked like. So that was kind of unfortunate to hear that I looked like
when
the bad
you had
guy.
the mutton chops. Yes, you definitely looked more like Hans when you had the mutton chops. But I mean, they've done a good job. Disney's done a good job too of keeping Frozen relevant to people because they came out with the Frozen Fever short.
People hated that. It
was cute. I think it's cute.
Fans were angry about it because it felt rushed and
it's short. It's just they just sing us one song,
right?
The whole thing, and then they did Olaf's Frozen Adventure in 2017, I believe.
Yeah, I didn't even see that.
I only watched it recently because it's on Disney Plus. So my kids loved it. It's 22 minutes. It's actually really funny.
Oh, I did hear about that. It aired in front of Coco, and people were upset. Really?
Olaf's Frozen Adventure did?
Yeah.
Oh.
Because people were like, "What is this? This is like a 22-minute
Yeah, it's like a
short film.
It's like a length of a kids' TV show, but it's really funny. Like, I think too because like we watch Frozen Fever all the time. The kids love it, and we just saw Olaf's Frozen Adventure, and then my husband hadn't seen Frozen before, so we watched it on Wednesday before we spontaneously decided to go see Frozen 2. So being immersed in all those Frozen things, and we listened to the soundtrack with my kids like at least 2 or 3 times a day, like in completeness, including the outtake songs, the demo songs, all the instrumental music. Like we listened to the entire score. So being immersed in that, like going to see Frozen 2 was really exciting. And I just was like, oh, I feel like I'm back with my friends.
So you have Frozen fever.
At
the time, I had no idea who Idina Menzel or Josh Gad. I don't even think I knew who Kristen Bell was.
But you're not
really.
into Kristen Bell's Veronica Mars.
Yeah, I'd never watched Veronica Mars.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so I think I was able to just take the movie as it was. The only actor who I could recognize was Maurice LaMarche doing the dad. And
see, and I don't know who that is.
He's a voice actor.
Okay.
Canadian voice actor. And
that's cool.
And Alan Tudyk doing his like I'm in every Disney movie now.
Alan Tudyk is what's the other guy?
The Duke of Weselton.
Yeah, Weaselton. It's a Weselton.
Yes. And then they made him Duke Weaselton in Zootopia.
Mm-hmm. It was very clever.
So it was a weasel. But yeah, so I was able to just absorb the movie without having any real impression. I think I'd seen the poster with Elsa, kind of like how she has her hand up like this and she's got like the kind of like the eyebrow thing going on. So I really had no expectations for it, and I was very surprised with what I saw. Not just because the songs were good, but because the way it played on expectations and what you expected from a movie about princesses, it was very interesting. And I mentioned being in a wedding this weekend, and I distinctly remember the guy who got married. We actually had a Frozen viewing party. And afterwards, and this, bear in mind, we're all adults. This is men and women, and the people in their 20s and 30s, probably 14 of us. And after the movie was over, we went outside and we built a snowman and had a snowball fight.
Oh, that's cute.
And that it's just I don't know, Frozen has become just a part of life.
Yeah, for sure. It's completely normal to hear people singing the songs or see stuff about it on social media. We went trick-or-treating and at the mall, and there was probably at least 25 Elsas, including my own daughter. Lots of kids are Elsa for Halloween.
Now, I still like Moana more as a movie over Frozen. I'm pretty sure I'm very much in the minority on that.
No, I think they're very different movies, but I like that both of them have very strong female leads with no romantic interest.
Why is that a bad thing to have romantic interest?
There's nothing wrong with it, but it's for princess movies. That's, at least when you come looking at the original Disney movies like Cinderella, Snow White, Sleeping Beauty, they're all about the prince saves the princess. And then later on we get into things like Tangled or Mulan, they're strong female leads that don't necessarily want to fall in love, but then they fall in love, and that becomes the happily ever after. They get married at the end. And in Moana and in Frozen, there's no final act. The final act doesn't end with a wedding, because the focus isn't on that type of relationship. It's focused on family relationships, which are also extremely important. So
So I mean, when they first announced that Frozen was getting a sequel, it was, of course, no duh. It became the highest grossing animated film of all time, beating out the first Lion King movie, the 1994 one. I guess I can't just be clear. So it's no surprise to me they greenlit a sequel. And at this point, this modern era of Disney animation, pretty much every property has been revisited at least once. Both Tangled and Big Hero 6 got TV sequels. Of course, Wreck-It Ralph got a sequel.
Pretty much every other Disney movie's gotten a live action version.
Yeah. Except Moana. All Moana's gotten is her small role in Ralph Breaks the Internet. So Disney, you better be making a Moana sequel, because it's not fair to leave her out. I'm happy that all these other characters get to have their time in the sun, but Moana deserves it just as much, if not more so. All that to say, so when the first trailer came out for Frozen 2, it was pretty much just Elsa running on water. And admittedly, it kind of got me more interested than I was before, because I'm like, I have no idea what's going on here. And I have so many questions now about where this is going to go.
And then they were releasing more and more, and they had that little snapshot of the girl being whirled up in the wind and dark misty forest looking stuff, and you're like, what is going on? When my daughter saw pictures of Elsa and Anna with their not in their costumes from the first movie, and Anna's hair is down, she's like, that's not Anna, she doesn't have braids. She was like, nope.
I know some parents were indeed concerned because the trailers made it look like the movie was going to go in a more serious, darker direction.
I mean, I think it did a little bit. It didn't go as dark as I think it could have, but I think it is a more mature film than the original Frozen.
And you have to expect that the little kids who would have watched the first one, they're older now, so it's always a fine line to draw with these sort of things. It's like, the MCU even, it's like, the people who would have been little kids when Iron Man 1 came out would have been in high school or college by the time Endgame came out. So how do you try to market or produce a product that reaches these different audiences?
No, for sure.
Because it's really hard to make a movie that engages 6-year-olds and 36-year-olds.
I think this movie did a very good job of that, actually.
So I guess this is probably an easy question. Were you excited to see Frozen 2?
I mean, yes. So we last minute decided we were going to go see it. I called my trusty babysitter, aka my mom, and she was like, sure, I'll come over. And we decided we were going an hour before the movie started, but I was so excited. I was
you knew you were going to see it at some point.
Yeah, I figured I'd probably go see it in a couple weeks, but when I was like, oh, we should go see it. We should go see it on opening night. Let's go. I was super excited.
And we went to the late show on the Thursday night, so there weren't any kids there. It was all adults.
And we went to the standard viewing, so I guess it's out in IMAX and in 3D. And we went to the not 3D one, so like I feel like it probably has a little bit less of a draw because we saw it in regular like in standard definition, which is my preference. I don't like 3D movies, but I could see why other people might. But yeah, it was like there was like maybe 20 people in the theater. It was pretty low key.
Yeah, it was nice.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And the theater we went to had like nice reclining chairs and
Yeah, that's the only way to go to the movies now, people. If your movie theater doesn't have reclining seats, I'm sorry for you. Because yeah. All right, so when Frozen came out 6 years ago, the critics from Rotten Tomatoes, well, they're not from Rotten Tomatoes, but the critics, I should say, on Rotten Tomatoes, the average critic score for the movie was 90%. Or the tomato meter came out at 90%, which means that reviews were very favorable for Frozen.
Mm-hmm.
And then the audience score for the first film was 85%.
Oh.
So
Well,
high, but not as high as the critics.
I have this for Frozen too. Do you want to know?
I was going to ask you if you could guess.
Oh, I looked at it. Yeah, well, I guess it's certified, Frozen 2 is certified fresh, but the critic consensus is 75%, but the audience is 94%. So it's only opening weekend, so I know it could probably change a little bit, but
the
it
audience,
seems like
typically at this point, it's like if once the critic meter, it's pretty set by this point.
Mm-hmm. Okay,
Because
but
most critics reviewed the movie kind of leading up to the release of the film, and then it's after the movie comes out, the audience ratings come in, and generally the audience rating starts out really high and goes down as it becomes more and more people see it.
As of Sunday night of opening weekend, the audience review is 94%, so I think that's pretty fresh.
But that's interesting that the critics are not loving this one nearly as much, because I would say like as a whole the movie is maybe even a little better. So it's interesting for me to see like the critics are not loving it nearly as much.
I mean, I definitely I liked it. I think I was talking to a bunch of my mom friends because they were asking questions on a Facebook group I'm in, like, oh, who's seen the movie? And I gave a review and I gave it a 7 out of 10. So that's not Bad Jar official ratings. I gave it a 7.5 out of 10. I was like, I'd go see it again. It was great. We've listened to the soundtrack like 5 times already, and it's only like 11:30 the next day kind of thing. But I definitely think the storytelling was better, but the songs weren't as catchy. And I don't think I'll let my 4-year-old see it because I think it's a little bit too mature. Like, it's rated PG, so.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, it's rated PG.
I didn't catch that. So you think it's fair that the critics are rating it less?
I mean, I can think of movies that I love that critics have not given great reviews to. So, you take our critics with a grain of salt. Like, their job is to critique movies, so they're always going to find a flaw. I think parents and other adults that like Disney and like Frozen specifically probably will very much enjoy this movie.
The audiences are certainly taking to it because this film, on its opening weekend, estimates are suggesting it's going to make about $127 million domestically. And globally, its debut is sitting close to $350 million.
That's a lot of money.
So apparently this is the largest opening weekend for an animated film outside of the summer.
Okay. But not of the year.
For an animated film this year, no, Toy Story 4 opened up higher. But not by much. I think it was a difference of no, Toy Story 4 did open lower than that. But now that I think about it, I'm getting Toy Story 3 and 4 confused in my head. But in terms of animated openings, it's the 4th highest of all time. And it's the 5th highest opening weekend for a movie in November, which is mostly dominated by Harry Potter's and Twilight movies.
Okay, so it's up there in terms of openings, but it's not at the top.
Yeah, it's it's certainly one of the highest opening weekends for a film this year. I can think of obviously Endgame, Captain Marvel, Lion King, and I think that
Aladdin.
No, I don't even. Aladdin didn't have that strong of an opening. It kind of it made money, but not that kind of money. So even for this year, it's one of the highest opening weekends that there's been. So it's nothing to sneeze at. And they emphasize that usually these movies come out over the American Thanksgiving, which is next weekend. So for the fact that it made this much money now when the American Thanksgiving hasn't happened yet, and also the fact that it's an animated movie which is targeted towards families, and families are less available to go see the movies this time of the year. It's a pretty impressive opening. And apparently the stats show that the audience was 59% female, so it's skewed a little bit more towards women than men, which...
Fair enough. It's about ladies, about two sisters, so...
Yeah. So without spoiling anything, what would you say is the plot of Frozen 2?
What's going on?
I think I woke the magical spirits of the enchanted forest.
Okay, that's definitely not what I thought you were going to say. Hang on!
We can do this.
Promise me we do this together, okay? I promise.
Frozen 2, rated PG.
Two sisters go search for truth in the past.
Time travel? Yay!
Not quite, but no, it's about Anna and Elsa finding out more about their past and what it means for their future, in a fun and hilarious madcap way, but also in a serious way. And they grow, and they there's a really big theme of transition and change. It's set in the fall, so
Oh, I didn't catch that.
yeah, it's fall right now, despite it being slightly snowy outside. It's fall. Yeah, I think that's... How would you summarize it?
Oh, you're flipping it back to me. It's been 2 years since the end of the first Frozen film, so we have Queen Elsa leading the kingdom, but she still seems to be a little bit shy and doesn't like being around people as much, and all of a sudden she starts hearing this voice that's calling out to her, and nobody else can hear it but her, and she decides to seek out where this voice is coming from. It starts messing with her powers a bit, and of course Anna doesn't want her sister to try and run away and deal with things on her own, because their sister relationship's really important, so she decides to go on the adventure too. All the while, poor Christophe is trying to propose to Anna, and he just keeps fumbling through his words and ends up going on the adventure as well, and Olaf's there because you have to have Olaf there in a Frozen movie. And so the major, as you kind of like the time travel-ish elements are there's an interesting way in which they kind of recreate moments from the past. So they're learning about things that their parents and grandparents did in the past and how that's impacting things happening in the present.
Yeah, I summarizes it very well without ruining the plot.
I think part of the reason why it's not as highly rated by critics is that, as I said before, the first Frozen has a lot of storytelling choices that really play on your expectations, because it's initially appears as though it's just like every other Disney movie, and then they go in directions like with Hans that really throw you for a loop. But this time around, there isn't really anything like that. It's a more conventional story, and while there are still like kind of twists, they're not like I could see the twist coming.
Yeah, there wasn't a big like shocker when Hans turns out to be the bad guy, or the plot twist for what true love actually is, like in the original Frozen. But I think this movie, despite being more conventional, the plot was more complex. So at the same time, like there was kind of multiple storylines where in the original Frozen it was just like Anna's plot line and then Elsa's plot line, and then they go together, whereas this one has the characters kind of going off on their own journeys, the main four, and exploring like kind of more personal, intense kind of things, like of changing, of doing hard things, of doing the next right thing, which is one of the songs in the movie, even when it's hard, or even when like things seem hopeless. Like they really dive into those kind of themes. Of it had you more thoughtful. Like it was a more thoughtful film, I think. Made you think more, made you feel more, and left me leaving the movie with a lot of stuff to think about. Whereas like the original one, you're like, yay, they're back together, it's all happy, and you're just like leaving the theater singing like the songs because they're super catchy. Whereas this one, the songs were not as catchy, but it left you thinking like, oh, like a lot happened. That was a journey.
I actually like these. I think I like I mean, maybe it's because the first set of Frozen songs are so overplayed at this point that I find myself gravitating towards the new songs. But also, like, some of the songs in the first film, it's like his Olaf song I did not care for one bit.
Yeah, it's
and
a little bit silly.
The Love is an Open Door song, like, in the context of understanding the whole movie, it kind of, that song was ruined for me because it's like, oh, this is like all a trick and it's bad.
Mm-hmm.
And Let It Go is kind of like, that just became such a huge phenomenon that it's in itself is overplayed. And also it's like, it's ironic that that's the most popular song for the movie because that totally goes against the message they're trying to like show. Like it's like that's Elsa when she's like, I'm gonna do this way, and then she finds out that's the totally wrong approach to life.
Yeah, to like leave everybody behind and like be alone when it's like actually like family love is what's gonna save you in the end, kind of thing. No, I agree. I'm just saying like maybe it's because I don't know all the new songs yet by heart. Like I could sing the entire soundtrack for the original Frozen movie.
You just have to go into the
I'll
unknown.
spare you, but also in the first movie it was a tragedy that Jonathan Groff did not get a song because he's an amazing singer. Like he's a Tony nominated Grammy Award winning musician and he got like a 4-line song and it was like, oh come on guys, like, so he got his dues. He got to sing an amazing song in the new Frozen movie, so like that made me happy.
The only way I was really reminded that 6 years have passed by is some of the animation because there's moments where there's like water or
the
wind.
water animation looked real.
Yeah, like you thought it almost seemed as though it was live action.
Yeah, or when they're going through the town, like in this one, you actually get to go into Arendelle. You're not just like in the castle. And some of the street scenes, like you're like, oh my gosh, this looks like you built it. Like it looked like it could have been a model that they had recreated. It was amazing.
Yeah, there was a couple of moments. The human characters are designed in a way that they don't look super realistic, which is good.
Who has ginormous eyes?
Yeah, like
teeny tiny nose. How does Elsa breathe with her tiny nose? It's a valid question.
It's a valid question for sure. But yeah, so like the animation is top notch. Absolutely, the music is great. I personally, like I said, enjoy the music in this new movie better. I've always made a comment on this show to say that a musical is a good musical when you're leaving the theater kind of still humming or singing the songs. Mm-hmm. And even now, like on the way over here, I was like, can I remember like any of the words from the songs from the movies? And yeah, there's a couple songs like I don't remember any of the words for, but there's a couple of things I do remember, and I'm like, okay, then that's enough to. And I know if I actually listened to the songs again, it would come back to me very easily. But.
Yeah, and this movie had much more music than the first one.
Really?
Yeah, I can check, but
no, I'll trust your judgment.
I feel like this one, at least the first half of the movie, was way more. This plot was driven much more by the music than by like what was happening. I found because they had like a rapid fire succession of songs. That's
fair, and I also feel like this music in this film is more central to the plot, I suppose. Like you can listen to some of the songs from the first film and them not really be like you can just watch them in isolation of the movie and understand it. But I feel like a lot of the songs in Frozen 2 are like major plot points or are related to specific things that are happening in the movie. Yeah. So if you were to just try and listen to the soundtrack without having seen the movie, which someone told me they did this week. And I'm like, no, you shouldn't do that.
Oh my gosh, I had to hold off because I'm like, I can't listen to the music until I'd heard snippets of Into the Unknown, which is like the main. It's like supposed to be like the Let It Go song of Frozen 2. You can form your own opinion on that, but I'd heard snippets, but I was like, I can't listen to it. I was like, I really wanted to listen to the music, but I was like, no, I have to be strong. I have to wait until I see the movie so I don't ruin anything.
Yeah, because some of the songs are very like important parts of the story, and you're gonna get spoiled for the movie if you listen to the whole soundtrack before going to see the movie.
Yeah. Okay. So I did a quick song count, and so technically, the original Frozen has one more song than Frozen 2, but I noticed that so in the first movie they have the opening song, the Vuli, I think is how you pronounce it. It's in the soundtrack, and they sing it in this movie too, which was like a beautiful moment, and it's not listed in the soundtrack, but I was like, if you count that, then they have the same amount of music. So
But it's interesting that we have this impression that there is more music, and maybe that's because
I think some of the songs were longer too.
Yeah, longer, and maybe because they're more tied into the plot, we remember them more. Mm-hmm. Like the reindeer song in the first film didn't really have any point.
No, but it's a really funny song, and I sing it all the time.
Oh.
And okay, something that was really I liked about this movie is that they didn't really play on it, but they definitely made references to the original film. Like at the beginning of Frozen, when Elsa and Anna are little kids, and Anna runs into Elsa's bed and she's like, I can't sleep, the sky's awake, so I'm awake. Like somebody says that in this movie, and they like make kind of jokes, or they reference back to the original, which I like thought was really fun, and I appreciated a lot. Because I found like it tied them together, and it reminded you, oh yeah, these are the same characters, but they're grown, they're different, they're older, but they're still like the same characters. And it's like little Easter eggs too. Yeah.
Oh yeah, like someone asked me, oh, like I haven't seen Frozen, could I go see Frozen 2? And
you're
I'm
like, no.
I'm like, yeah, you could easily, because there's a lot of clever, like one of the things I'll applaud the movie for is the ways in which they call back to the first film.
Oh yeah, there's that one
moment.
Yeah, that's a pretty good one too.
Yeah, and they refer, like there's a couple times as jokes they refer to things that happened in the first film.
Yeah.
So I think you could watch Frozen 2 without having seen the first one. The one thing you'd have to accept is that there's a girl with ice powers, and the first film never really explains. They never really explains where those powers come from. They just sort of say she was born with them.
Yeah, and
which
I guess
means that she should go join the X-Men and not do what she did in the first film.
It's true. I think yeah, they do explain, like they make a joke about Hans, and actually it's in the preview for the movie where they're like doing charades, and she's like trying to act it out, and they're like, Hans, the worst mistake of your life, and she's like, it was a villain. Like it's Anna saying that, but so they're able to remind you, oh yeah, like that happened and stuff, but you don't get the backstory between Anna and Elsa as much, that they had that separation.
That's fair.
So like you could definitely go see it. I guess you could go see it without seeing the first one, but I would just recommend that you just see the first one, like rent it or get Disney Plus for a week for free and watch it before you go. Like you're not losing anything by watching Frozen. Like it's a great movie. Honestly, I think it gets better the more you watch it, but that might also be because I have a 4-year-old, so I've watched it many times.
So while we said there's nothing really shocking in the film, I think this is probably a good point to start talking about spoilers for the movie, because there's nothing super surprising, but we don't want to spoil it for people who haven't seen it yet. So.
There's nothing wrong with talking in generalities, but like it's fun to get into the nitty gritty of the film. So spoiler warning.
We don't want to get lost in the woods.
Especially with reindeers.
We have to do the next right thing and go into the unknown.
Oh dear.
The spoilerverse. So we're inside the spoilerverse now. If you don't want to be spoiled for the movie, you can go into the episode description and skip around the time codes to go to the spoiler-free section at the end, where we give our final thoughts and review the movie. But we're now in the spoilerverse.
All right, the spoiler bubble has come down.
How come Elsa and Anna's mom is white?
Oh my gosh, that bothered me so much.
Like I guess it's like to hide the fact that she's part of this group of people.
Maybe she just got less tanned. Maybe she got pale. Okay, if you don't know what we're talking about because you haven't watched the movie, stop and like skip ahead. But secondly, it's just to clarify, like her mom is Northundra. Is that how you say it? Yeah, there's indigenous culture that's they're based on the Sami people of Norway in Sweden and stuff, and they're all like, when they meet them in the Enchanted Forest, they're all like, they look indigenous and they all have brown hair and like
darker skin,
darker skin, and then some of them have blue eyes. So fair point to that. Like that one guy. I can't remember his name. Jason Ritter's character. Yeah, Ryder. Jason Ritter's character. So he had blue eyes, so I'm like, okay, I see that. But yeah, they don't explain why she had brown hair
But if you look at like all of those people, they all have a darker skin tone.
And as a kid, okay, also she's the like mysterious person swirling in the leaves, and she has like her hair is much closer colored to Anna's hair.
You think?
She was a child. Yeah, I thought so. It looked more reddish.
Well, I mean, I've seen people, their hair color changes over the years.
Yeah, it's true.
But-
So maybe she dyed her hair so she didn't look like she was. Like maybe she was hiding it. It was a secret because their people were fighting. So she didn't want the kingdom of Arendelle to know that she was from the Enchanted Forest. But also, how did they not realize that she had gone missing after the battle? Like, wouldn't they have buried all of their people? Wouldn't they have noticed, like, oh, where is, like, I can't remember what her name is, but
Yeah, I mean, we're getting into a very specific thing. This is just one of the ways in which this movie is less sophisticated and less surprising than the first film.
oh yeah, Iduna, Queen Iduna, right? I'm like, how did they not know Iduna went missing? She was like a 12-year-old child or 14-year-old child that went missing in a battle. And yeah, I was asking my caller, my husband, I was like, why? And he's like, kids will not care.
Well, that's a good point, but also it's to make, I don't know, because for me it's like from the first scene when they go in and the dad starts talking about the forest and you see like the look on her face. Mm-hmm. And she starts talking about the river. I'm like, yeah, that's probably what this is going to be. Is that it's going to reveal that she's part of this other group of people.
Yeah.
And obviously they must have. I mean, first of all, continuity. Who knows when they made the first film if they were intending for that to be the case. So the fact that they made her white in that movie, then it really would raise eyebrows if all of a sudden she looked different in this one.
I mean, I guess it's possible too that like before the Northumbrians and the Arendellians got into their conflict, that maybe there was some like crossing over of cultures, and who knows, maybe like there was an Arendellian that went up to the Enchanted Forest and decided to stay and became part of the culture, kind of like Elsa does at the end of the movie, but who knows. But yeah, she looks very white and the people that she comes from do not, and so it's very confusing.
And there's been a little bit of controversy because Sterling K. Brown is a character in this movie who is black, and
they made him. He plays a black character though.
But that's the thing, is like that time period in Norway, there probably wouldn't have been any black people.
And there was only one other black character who was his love interest.
Yes. So, but you know what? It's like, it's not like this is meant to be an accurate representation of history. It didn't bother me in the slightest. I brought up the race thing with the mom because it's just a plot hole. Yeah,
no, it's a little bit, you're kind of, as an adult, I was kind of like, oh yeah, that's, how is this, no one is questioning this? Like when they realize that Elsa and Anna's mom is from the Enchanted Forest, all of them are just like, okay, and they sing the Vuli, which is beautiful. And then I was like, I got goosebumps when they're all singing the choral arrangement of the song.
That was a fun callback to the first movie.
Yeah, and it's such a beautiful song, and like to hear it sung that way was really pretty. Like it was just really a good moment for me in the film. It's one of the highlights. And then, but I'm like, they just are like accepting of it. There's no questioning. They're just like, oh, your mom must be this person. Oh my goodness. Okay, well, welcome home. Like they just welcome them in without any sort of questioning, any sort of like, originally they were super skeptical of Elsa and Anna and Christophe and Olaf. They're like, who are these people? We're gonna attack them and kick them out of the forest. And then they go from that, like it's like a complete 180. They're like, they go from being suspicious to being like, welcome back home, welcome to the family. Like no questions asked. I found they skipped over that part way too quickly for my liking.
Did you find Anna's insistence to be continually involved in the story annoying? Because it's like there's so many times when Elsa's like, okay, I'm gonna go do this thing because I have these powers and this thing's, and Anna's like, no, like I need to be in this movie too. You can't let me not be in the movie.
No, I think knowing, like, Anna is very afraid of being left out, and that's obviously a wound from her childhood, from being basically neglected after her, like, as a child. You like, that whole plot point in Frozen is also very questionable. But like you see, like Anna is very afraid of being abandoned, and so she doesn't want Elsa to be abandoned.
But she doesn't say that she's worried about her. She claims that she's concerned about her sister.
Yeah, but I'm pretty sure, like, if you take like 5 seconds, if you take a psychology class in university, you're gonna be like, oh, she has abandonment issues. Like, obviously she has abandonment issues.
I found it annoying because I watched The Flash, and the Flash's wife Iris. They found more and more ways for her to be actively involved in the Flash stuff, and it's like
annoying.
Yeah, it's kind of like you do your thing. You can be a reporter over here and do your thing, but let the Flash do the Flash things. And I felt like Anna was like the Iris of this movie. She's like, I have to. It's like, no, Elsa has superpowers, and there's a thing that only she can do. There's nothing you can do to help her. And anyway.
Yeah, I like Anna probably could have been more accepting when Elsa's like, I have to go to like I have to keep going with the voice and you can't follow me anymore. Like it probably would have been a better character development for Anna to be accepting of that and being like, okay, even though we're sisters, it's okay that we're different and we're not doing things. We can still be sisters apart. Like Anna needed to learn that lesson, which I feel like she does later in the film, but they could have put it at that point, and I don't think it would have taken away from the movie.
I also felt like the moments where like Christophe is trying to propose to her and then she's like freaking out to all his questions, it seemed kind of out of character for me, because from what we haven't seen a whole lot of them as a couple, but it seemed like they had a, I don't know, stronger relationship than that, and those moments were written for the comedy's sake of like, oh, misunderstanding, and oh, like he doesn't know what to say the right thing. Well,
it was weird that Anna automatically jumped to these like horrible conclusions about like, oh, what, you want to break up with me? Oh, what, we're not okay? Like that was weird, because
that's the part I was like, this seems like out of character for her almost, considering how much of an optimist she generally is.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like I thought that was a little bit odd, especially because you would think after the first movie, and even in the Frozen kind of in-betweens, like Frozen Fever and Ola's Frozen Adventure, like they seem to have a very stable, comfortable relationship, and so for her to be automatically questioning is a little bit odd. But I mean, if Christophe was acting out of character, which it seems like he was, then maybe she was worried that, you know, she's afraid of, like I said before, she's afraid of abandonment, so maybe that's her way of like trying to stop herself from being hurt again, right? And I mean, Hans ended up being a psychopath slightly, you know, like he wasn't what he meant to be, so she has to work through her past to be a better person. And
no, that's a good point. I wasn't thinking of it that way. So one of the big plot points in this movie is this dam, and it's first introduced through the father of Anna and Elsa telling them the story. Whenever a movie starts with someone telling a story about something that happened in the past, I'm like, this is going to be a major plot point, and it's going to be a huge thing. It happened in the second Hellboy movie. It happened here, and the king kind of talks about this dam that was built as like a good thing, and I was like, probably not.
You're like, nope, it's going to be terrible.
And sure enough, it's revealed towards the end of the film that the grandfather of our heroines, in fear of the magic that these Northaldrins had, built this dam as a gift, but as a way to essentially make their culture die out.
Yeah, he's trying to force them to assimilate with the Arendellians and to rely on Arendelle.
Now, certainly the story of mistreating indigenous peoples is not nothing new. We've seen that before, and it's part of history. Did you feel as though that was kind of like hitting a overdone nail on the head, or was it a different enough take on the story that didn't feel like a rehash or unnecessary?
Well, I didn't think that it took away from the movie. I don't think that was, it wasn't too on the nose, if you know what I mean. It made it more relevant, I think. But it wasn't bothersome to me. Something that was more bothersome to me in the movie was like how overly self-aware Olaf was at some points when he would say some things. I was like, oh my gosh, it sounds like you're anyway. Some of the things Olaf was just saying were like really annoying because they were too on the nose. They were too like obvious. Whereas I found that plot point, like, it was important, but I think they could have done more with it, but they chose to keep it as a subtlety. But I think it was a good nod to the fact that for centuries, Indigenous people have been mistreated and been cheated and been tricked by colonizers. But I think in this, like, we don't know the past of Arendelle. Like, were the Arendellians colonizing the land? Did they take it from the people in the Enchanted Forest? We don't know all that backstory, whereas what we know in Canada, for example, like, of how the Indigenous people were mistreated, like, it would make it, like, if they just glossed over it like that in a movie about Canada, like, it would be bad. But I think there was enough, but there wasn't a lot of context. So what they did without the context, I think, was good. I don't know. Like, I'm not Indigenous person, so I can't necessarily speak to that either. But I think the point also about taking care of the land, because the dam was bad for everybody overall, and like Elsa in the movie ends up restoring the balance, right, of nature. And I think so even that kind of subtle environmentalist plot was not so obvious that you were like, oh my gosh, are we really going to talk about the environment again? Like, we know, like, climate change is a thing, it's bad, like, whatever, carbon tax, yada yada yada. Yada yada yada. Like, we're all aware. I compost, guys. Like,
did you feel like the water memories thing was a clever thing or a lazy thing?
I thought it was clever, actually. I thought that was really smart. Like, it's they did a good job of setting that up too. Like, so basically, like, Olaf has becoming more self-aware, more older. So he's asking all these very philosophical questions, or he says he's very like
educated.
Yeah, educated things. Very like, he talks a lot about like he psychoanalyzes himself and other people and stuff. And so that part I found a little bit annoying. I was like, oh my gosh, like, yeah, self-awareness is important, but like, can we please, like, there's a point where it was funny and then there was a point where it was annoying. You know, I think it got a little bit annoying, but Olaf says, like, did you know, like, one of the things he learned was that water has memory, that the water you drink has passed through 4 other people, and that it retains the memory of those people. So you kind of think he's just saying it because he's just regurgitating what he's learned. Like, he also says that turtles can breathe out of their butts. So you're kind of like, oh, haha, it's funny.
Yeah, so throughout the movie, they come across locations, and just by Elsa using her powers, she's able to recreate memories of things that happened in those spaces. So that's this plot device is used to kind of spell out the history of Arendelle and Northuldra, and you learn the history of the conflict and the nature of Anna and Elsa's parentage and how their parents died. So those are certainly moments that it's like, if it were not for this little plot device that allows us to basically like watch flashbacks with the characters, the movie would not make as much sense, and it'd be a much harder story to tell. I mean, it's either this or they find, characters who come in like, oh, let me tell you about this thing I saw. And then for the audience, they get the flashback, but then the people in the movie only get to like hear the auditory version. But at least in this case, you have these visuals of like essentially these ice sculptures, kind of helping them kind of see a bit more of the story. But once again, it just seems like Elsa's power set just keeps expanding to doing more and more and more things. It's like, sure, she can activate water molecules in a dried up boat, and
she permafrosted Olaf so he doesn't need his little flurry cloud anymore.
Yeah, like the honest trailer for Frozen makes a joke about like how varied her abilities are, and it's not just casting like ice manipulation. She can do all kinds of things that raise many questions. Like Frozone from The Incredibles can only make ice based on whatever oxygen is available to him, and therefore he's limited in how many ice objects he can create. But Elsa seems to have this like unlimited pool, and she can create clothing with it, and she like,
yeah, how she makes that part confused me. I was like, what?
And I was kind of hoping like having a sequel to Frozen, that they were going to kind of get into more of like where her powers come from, because as I said, the first film they explained that she was born with the powers, and they kind of like talk about it as if it's a curse or something. And by the end of the movie, we're no closer to really understanding where those powers come from or why she has them.
But it's because we don't know anything about Northuldra.
But even like Northuldra doesn't even really play a role in the first film. I'm just led to believe she's like an
Thank you. It's not going to stop.
We had an unexpected visitor drop by.
Elsa came to visit.
Yes, it's Elsa.
Elsa from Olaf's Frozen Adventure, to be specific.
Oh, okay. Is that why she has like the white collar?
Yeah, it's her Christmas dress because they celebrate the Yule.
Well, that's very special.
Now she's staring at me. Excellent.
With her big old Disney eyes.
They are very large, and her nose is very small.
Does that really bother you, the whole nose thing?
Yeah. Yes. Yes. And I won't get into the whole like big eyes, like big cheeks, small nose thing. Like it's
I don't know.
Anyway,
I guess
I won't get into it, but it's...
I watch enough anime that it doesn't bother me when characters have large
Mm-hmm.
eyes. So yeah, so as far as my hope with the sequel was that I was going to learn more about like why Elsa has these powers. If they just said, "Oh, she's a mutant and she was born that way," then that's fine and dandy. But they kind of go further into the mystical here. So as they like by the end of the film, where it's revealed that she's the fifth elemental spirit. And first of all, I'm like, are we having another movie where it's elemental spirits? It's like how many? Like even Bionicle does this with like the different elements, or being and like Avatar: The Last Airbender. Like everyone's already done this, so to me it felt a little cliche that they were going down the road of like the four elements and the balancing of nature and blah blah blah.
Yeah, no, for sure.
And then she's like the Avatar. She's the fifth person who can seemingly use all of them somehow. And there's, I don't know. They never really explain why she's like how she was born this way. Like,
Because the elements rewarded Iduna for saving Agnar.
so is this supposed to be like a reference to like the Virgin Mary or something?
Okay, I think that's taken it a little far, but
Well, it's an extension of the same, like the the Holy Spirit, like some kind of external presence creates this child with immense abilities that naturally couldn't have existed, and she's like
she has the
one,
Force. Okay, she's like
she's like a
she's like a Jedi. I don't know, but she can only control ice and water.
I have my own Elsa now too, by the way. So
Yes.
like you have your Elsa, I have one that looks like she's
From the original movie,
right, except she's missing the skirt, so it looks like it's kind of like a
bathing suit.
either a figure skating outfit or like a bathing suit.
Well, it kind of almost like what she wears in the new movie when she wears her like wetsuit thing
That's fair.
without the flowy cape bit. But yeah, I agree. Like that plot point was a little bit weak. It was kind of like, oh yeah, of course it's Elsa. Like, who else is it gonna be? No one else in Arendelle has magical powers. No one in North Uldra has magical powers either. They just are one with nature, so they can not necessarily control the elements, but they work with nature, with the water and fire and air and earth to live in harmony. So like, it's interesting that Elsa would have magical powers outside of that, but I guess because her mother goes to Ahtohallan, I'm not totally sure about like what all that happened. But when Elsa gets to Ahtohallan, which is the river in the North Sea, which ends up being glacier, and she's singing, and then her mother appears.
Yeah, that was
so you're
weird
like,
too.
I was like, okay, so it's like, is this where the spirit of your mom went after they died in the North Sea? Like, I'm like,
Yeah,
okay, cool. Like,
but sometimes the problem with magic is that there's never really, I guess, an explanation for how it works. Because there's like a point in the film where Elsa is on her own and she's trying to like learn more and more of the history, and for some reason it's like the hardest parts of their history is like hidden for some reason, so she has to go like deeper and deeper into like this cavern to like
in the glacier,
access the truth, and it gets to the point where she becomes an entire ice sculpture. That was the other thing too with Frozen the first, when like Anna turned into ice, I genuinely wasn't sure if she was going to come back or not.
I know, and I was like, obviously Elsa's gonna have to return. How it's gonna happen, I'm not totally sure. And they don't even explain how she gets, like, do the elements just let her go? They de-ice her? They pour antifreeze on her?
Yeah, and then
That's a
when
terrible joke, I'm
Olaf,
sorry.
like air quotes, dies in this movie, like I had a hard time being invested in the moment because I'm like, they're not going to kill Olaf off.
I know. But it was kind of sad. But you're also like, he's probably gonna, like, that was a tough thing too. It was like, I was sad, and like, I think I was more empathetic for Anna, because being a character in the movie, obviously she doesn't know that like that's not the end of Olaf, but as being a viewer, you're like, well, obviously they're not, like, this is a movie for children, they're not gonna kill
Listen, they
Olaf.
killed off Optimus Prime in 86 Transformers, so
But the only people that die in the original Frozen are Elsa and Anna's parents, and they die like partially off screen, right? But like, they don't kill Hans, and they don't kill the Duke of Weaselton. Like, they don't kill anybody. Like, nobody dies. Even Anna doesn't die in the end. But this one, you kind of know that people aren't going to die, even though it has a PG rating. Like, but they could have killed off Olaf, and it maybe would have made a bigger impact.
Yeah, that's I'm just trying to say, like, in comparison to the first film, when these things came up, I was like, well, I wasn't as invested emotionally because I was able to. It felt like a more conventional Disney movie. It's like, well, this isn't gonna pan out the way that they're trying to make you think it will be.
But a younger child might be. That might be hard for a young kid.
Right.
Like,
And
that's partially why I'm like, I don't think my 4-year-old is gonna really understand this just yet. Like, we've never experienced death in our family either. So, like,
Well, how does she handle The Lion King?
She hasn't seen The Lion King.
Oh.
We've listened to them. She's listened to the story. So, but she hasn't really, like, I don't think she clued in that Mufasa, like, actually dies.
Yeah, I guess with the whole circle of life thing, they can.
Yeah.
I have found a way to suspend my Elsa from the microphone cable, so
She looks a little Miley Cyrus wrecking ball phase, just FYI.
oh well.
Anyway, we are tangenting like crazy. But yeah, like people like Elsa gets frozen. The question though, do the snowballs, the snow geese that they make in Frozen Fever and Marshmallow, the giant ice monster, do they also disappear? I'm
Probably.
assuming they're living up in Elsa's castle. Does Elsa's castle disappear because that was made of her magic? How do they all reform? They show you how Olaf reforms at the end. The wind spirit saves all of his little snowflakes, and then Elsa remakes him. But anyway, these are all plot holes in the movie that I really would like to know the answer to because I'm way too invested.
That's fair, and I think we both have things we wanted that we didn't get with this film, so that's disappointing for sure.
But we did get things that we wanted, aka Christophe's song, which we have to talk about because it's incredible.
Yeah, it's like the best song in the movie for me.
It is so funny. It is so good.
It's like shot, the way it's framed on film, it's as if it's like a 90s music video.
Like a 70s, 80s. It's like Meatloaf and Queen, and the sound, like it sounds like Chicago wrote it. It's so good.
It's if you can imagine the frame, it's like, you know, he's standing in the woods because the song is called Lost in the Woods. So it's like him standing next to a tree, and then on the other side of the screen, you get a close-up of his head.
Like floating.
Yeah, just kind of disembodied
totally
head.
Clips of the Heart style. Like, oh my gosh, this whole thing. It's totally a nod to the parents. It's totally a nod to the adults that are watching this movie. It's a huge, like... Yeah,
there was definitely, a moment where it made me think of the music video for Bohemian Rhapsody.
Yeah, when they have... they have the 3 reindeer heads in blue, and it's totally Bohemian Rhapsody. And my husband played me the beginning of the Chicago song, and it's the same, like almost exactly the same electric guitar introduction.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's like, it's so funny. And like, anyway, it cracked me up. I actually played this entire Chicago album on Friday morning, and none of my children complained. And normally if I don't play kids music, they complain a lot. And I had my friend's kids too, and she was dropping them off, and in the background is like 80s power rock.
Okay, so this is Chicago the band, not Chicago the musical.
Yeah, Chicago the band.
Good point to clarify.
Yeah,
there.
sorry.
Yeah,
But
so
it's
talking
great.
about the song specifically, Lost in the Woods was a highlight. Unfortunately, Christophe doesn't have a whole lot else to do in the movie, and
he just wanders around sadly, hoping that he can propose to Anna.
Yeah,
and,
and it's kind of hard to, in a movie like this where you're really trying to emphasize the female empowerment, it's kind of hard to be like the male character because you either have to do a total role reversal of a conventional story and he becomes like the damsel in distress, or he's just there and doesn't do a whole lot. Because like there are moments where he contributes to the plot, but generally outside of singing his really great song, he doesn't have a whole lot else to do.
Yeah, he makes friends with Ryder. They show a little, I guess, like he helps to show a little bit more of the culture of the Northaldrins, but like, yeah, you're right. They could have completely done away with him in the movie, and I don't know if it would have made too much of an impact.
The introductory song was not as the one where everyone's kind of chiming in.
Oh, Some Things Never Change?
Yeah, like that wasn't as impressive as For the First Time in Forever.
Or Do You Want to Build a Snowman?
Yeah, I don't like that one very much, to be honest, but I'm sure your kids love it.
Yes. And I get asked often, do I want to build a snowman? And
Also
I say,
fair.
Come on, let's go and play.
But in terms of like Anna's really sad song, it's not a song I want to listen to over and over again because it's kind of depressing. But it made me think of like Santa Claus is coming to town when it's like put one foot in front of the other. because it's like it is like that is
The Into the Unknown song?
no the one where she's it's like do the next right thing.
Oh, Anna's song, yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like it's not the kind of one I want to listen to over, but it's powerful because it's got a good message for people.
Mm-hmm. And this is the point where like Anna so Olaf's just died. He's dissolved, and she knows that Elsa's in trouble, and so she has to figure out what she's all alone. Like her worst fears come true. She's all alone, trapped in a cave, and she has to figure out what the next right thing to do. When all she wants to do is just curl up and die on the floor of this cave. So yeah, the song like that plot point is really good. Like that song drives the story really well, and it is a very powerful ballad. You can do it on a, and it's really, that's also like a central theme of the movie too, is to do the next right thing. Like even when it's hard, like Elsa having to cross the North Sea is hard, but she keeps trying. She just puts one foot forward and keeps going, kind of thing. And
Santa Claus is Coming to Town dead at first, folks. That was in 1970, so go back and rewatch that movie.
oh,
So there were two Elsa songs. Like there was the Into the Unknown, which
And
has the big
then-
all.
yeah, it's anyway. Which the radio edit that Panic at the Disco does at the end is amazing. It's so
Some
good.
people like it better than Idina Menzel's version.
Yeah, I could see that. The electric guitar in it is pretty sweet.
I did like the Jonathan Groff version of his song better than the Weezer. Well, the Weezer cover is good, but I liked his better.
The Casey Musgraves version of All Is Found is very good. I could see that being played on like the radio all the time. Like it's very.
Is that the other
haunting.
Elsa song, the one that comes later?
That's the Iduna song. That's the song that the lullaby that the mom sings to
Oh.
them about the North Wind,
Yeah,
where the North Wind meets the
okay.
sea.
Because there's the Elsa song where she gets her Super Saiyan transformation into her new outfit at like towards the end, but I can't remember what that one's called.
It is called Show Yourself, when she's like,
oh,
show yourself, I know you're out there. That one, yeah.
yes. Those two songs kind of blend together for me. 'Cause I realize they're different songs, but
I think I like Show Yourself better. I think just because at that point in the movie, you're like excited for Elsa's at the point where she's like going to find the source of her power. She's going to where the elements are. She's hopefully finding like the truth of everything, and she's done this really hard thing by like taming the water spirit and getting to Otahallan, and you're like, yes, you finally make it. And she's like so excited because she's like finally she's like, I'm going to find out who I am, like why I'm made this way, why I'm different from everybody else. And so she gets there, and you're like, she's singing this like really epic song about it, and she's like voice, like show yourself to me because I need to know. And she finally does, and I think she does find a sense of,
just to keep her hair down.
yeah. And she wears a wetsuit, and they had to animate her feet, which apparently was like they didn't have to do in the first movie. But yeah, like I thought that song really was powerful in the film, because you're like, yes, Elsa, you're gonna like figure out who you are, and it's like a really great moment.
Yeah, because Disney movies have always been really good at exploring the theme of identity.
Mm-hmm.
And-
Yeah, Moana is a really good example of that.
Yeah, or Hercules, or any of these, a lot of these movies actually. But Let It Go, people don't like that song morally because she's trying to figure who she is, and she's going down the wrong path in terms of she's saying like, forget everything else, and I'm just gonna do what I want.
Yeah, so Show Yourself is the contrast to Let It Go, but Let It Go is much catchier, I think personally. It's more fun to sing Let It Go, but I also don't know all the words to Show Yourself yet.
All right, well, only time will tell how the longevity of the songs. Apparently, at the time of this recording, it is the soundtrack for Frozen 2 is #1 on iTunes for albums. So see how long it stays there.
Cool. Also, I will say the soundtrack is very good. They put all the outtake songs, so the songs that they had recorded but didn't make it into the film. They do that in the other ones too, like the deluxe versions of the albums, but usually it's after all of the instrumental music. Then at the end they have all the outtake songs that are like demos. So they're not necessarily recorded by the actors. They're not necessarily recorded with really good musical accompaniment, but the outtakes are immediately after the radio edits of the music, and they're really good. Like Olaf's song Unmeltable Me, which is the outtake song, I think it's better than Olaf's song in the movie. Like it's just more fun, and like it explains like a little bit more about why he has permafrost and stuff. I preferred that song to the one he sang in the movie. And there's a really, really cute song that Christophe and Anna sing together called Get This Right. And it's just really cute. It's a really cute song about Christophe and Anna's relationship, which is adorable.
I wish I'm gonna have to go look for that one.
Yeah, it's really cute.
Admittedly, Christophe and Anna's relationship is one of the things that I'm most invested in the Frozen franchise. So, so do you want to see a Frozen 3?
I mean, if they made it, I probably would go see it. Do they need to make it? Only if they're going to answer those questions, which that I brought up, but they probably aren't.
Now, would you rather they go the route of Tangled and Big Hero 6 where it becomes like a TV show?
Honestly, I don't think they need to do anything. Like, some things just need to be left alone.
Just let it go?
Yes. Like after the third Toy Story movie, I was like, I don't need to see any more Toy Story movies. I have not seen Toy Story 4 yet.
And you don't need to.
Yeah, see, like, I'm just like, even all these remakes of like live action, aka CGI'd movies of like the classic of the Renaissance, Disney Renaissance, like I'm like, like I'd much rather show my kids the originals. So like, stop, like this horse has been beaten to death over and over again. So I think they don't need to. Will they? I mean, come on, it's a huge moneymaker for Disney, so why wouldn't they? But yeah, I probably would go see another one, to be honest.
Any other spoilery things you want to talk about?
I'm trying to think. I like trivia and stuff like that. So I'm like, does anybody want to know some trivia?
Oh, Elsa does. She's got her hand up.
Oh, Elsa. Well, so in all the Disney movies, they always do little Easter eggs. So from other Disney movies, so Baymax appears as a little snow figurine.
I did notice that.
Yeah, I heard you in the theater say it. If no one has ever gone to a movie with Average Joe, it is excellent because he laughs the loudest out of everybody, and I love it because then I feel like it's okay if I laugh at parts that other people don't laugh at. I got smacked a couple times by my husband, but just shushing me, not like, anyway. Yeah, just like, oh, here's a fun fact. The little fire salamander, like Elsa's little salamander buddy, his name is Bruni. I don't know why, but that's his name.
He'll sell a lot of toys.
Oh, he's so cute. He's so cute. Yeah, all heroines need a little animal sidekick, so why not a little salamander? It's super adorable.
So coming around to final thoughts, Frozen 2, for both Dee Dee and I, left questions we had coming into the movie from the previous film unanswered.
And made more questions.
Yes, so as adults who were able to get really invested in this franchise through the first film, we kind of came into the sequel with expectations which weren't met entirely. And also just the first Frozen film will always be remembered for how unconventional it was and how it kind of broke the mold for Disney princess movies. Whereas Frozen 2, it doesn't do the same thing. I would almost compare it to Lego Movie, the second part, in the sense that the Lego Movie did something so unique when it came out, and it'll always be remembered for how unique it was. So then the second one couldn't recapture that same magic.
Yeah, and honestly, I think maybe Hollywood people, if you're listening, you don't need to recreate the same, like, I don't think you're ever going to capture the magic of the first of any sort of movie. Like, I think Toy Story did a really good job of that, and the Back to the Future franchise did a pretty decent job of that in terms of kids movies. Like, I'm not talking about like the Godfather stuff, like, but I'm talking about like kids movies. Like, those two films, I think those franchises did a good job. Since then, I don't know if any other one really has, and I don't think they need to. Like, I think it's great that they want to keep telling the stories of these characters. The point of what I'm trying to say is I don't think that you need to try and, like, I think it's good that they're continuing to tell a story. If they have a good story, and they really need to think, like, is this story worth telling? Not, is this story going to make us a buttload of money? Yeah,
because for all the complaining we've just done for Frozen 2.
Oh my gosh, no, I actually really liked the movie. I really
enjoyed the movie, and the music's great, and it's just not...
And it's so funny. There's so many funny moments. It's so good. I
Yeah.
want to go see it again, to be perfectly honest. I'd probably go see it in the theater again if someone asked me.
Yeah, and I'm having a really good time playing with Elsa's hair here. I probably got to put her down because I'll get distracted. So having said all that, even though it doesn't do all the things the first film was able to do from just a movie making perspective, it's still a movie I would say it's worth seeing, especially if you like musicals.
Yeah.
Especially if you enjoyed the first Frozen. If you didn't enjoy Frozen,
Probably don't go see the second one.
yeah, I mean, if you have complaints about specific elements of the first Frozen, like how Elsa's individualistic, remove myself from everyone I care about approach to life, if you didn't like that part of Frozen, they have a good response to that in Frozen 2.
Mm-hmm.
But otherwise, for most people, I'd say it's worth seeing. Having said all that, I think I'll slap this movie with a 3.2 out of 4 bad cookies.
Yeah, I'd probably give it around there, like maybe 3.4. Like,
You just said 7 out of 10 earlier.
okay, 7.5 out of 10. Is that a 3.3 then?
Well,
I don't know. I'm not good at math.
75% would be a 3 out of 4.
Okay. Well, I think, but it's like,
So I'm giving it, if you want to
Okay.
transfer it over to percentages, I'm giving it closer to like an 82%.
okay, somewhere between 75 and 82% then.
So you could say like 3.1 or 3.2.
Okay, 3.25.
No, well, it's only one decimal point. You can't do that. It's either 3.2
I'm being
or
indecisive
3.3.
because I really I just want to. The only reason I feel like I was so critical of the movie is because I really liked it, which sounds backwards, but
No, like
genuinely, it was very funny. It has some really good throwbacks to the original. The music was excellent. The character development was really good in this movie, like much more than the first one because they were able to explore more mature themes. And everyone at the end, I guess we didn't really talk about this in this. I won't say a spoilery bit, but like everybody grows and changes in the movie, which that to journey with the characters that way was really beautiful. And I really did like the story a lot more than the original one. But I think because the original one was so unconventional, it made this one look a little bit more conventional.
Less shiny.
Less shiny comparatively, but they were both excellent films. Like, I think the storytelling in this film was superior to the first one. I think the music in the first one was superior to this one, but the music is still excellent and will be played in my house on repeat because I have a 4-year-old child.
There you go. Frozen 2 is now in theaters, so feel free to go check it out. It's time to go into the Bachelor and look at our mail. And this week we have a Facebook message from Iris Flores. So, Dee Dee, I'll get you to read this out for us.
Oh, okay. Just a sec. Hey, Average Joe. You talk at the beginning about TV programs. I think it is an inaccurate representation to say you have to be there to watch the things. I rely heavily on recording my programs.
So, last week when we were talking about Disney Plus, we were talking about the idea of event television and the idea of having to actually sit down Tuesday night at 8 o'clock to watch a particular show, and how with streaming services and DVRs and all the stuff that exists now, it's a lot easier to not have to do that. This idea of destination or event television is much less of a thing now. And when we were talking about Disney Plus last week, I think I might have said something to the effect of that there is still a place for event television, and that it should be a thing, and that the episodic or weekly release schedule that Disney Plus is doing for their original shows is actually something I was advocating for because I don't like the binge format of television.
Well, I mean, I have kids and a busy life and stuff like that, so I appreciate being able to watch shows recorded later on when I'm free to watch them. But my experience of watching the last 2 seasons of Outlander on TV have been great because I make it an event. I have a friend and we sit down and we watch it. We get snacks and we watch the hour and 20-minute episode at a time, and it's the thing that we do, and it made it part of my week because it was important to me. So I can see where you're coming from, and I can see where Iris is coming from because I know she's also has a busy life, and recording television definitely has its place, but live watching TV still is. If you're gonna make time to watch, if it's important to you, make time to watch it. So, and when you watch it live, you can live tweet along with it. Or you can like, I don't know, like even YouTube I think sees the benefit of that because they have a feature where you can premiere video. So you can have the video, you can show it to your subscribers and say like, we're going to premiere this video at 8:00 on Tuesday night, and then people will go and watch it live together and they can like live comment on it.
Yeah, I guess Twitch as a platform is totally based on the idea of event-based programming.
So it's still a thing and it has its place, and so does live recording. So I think it's a win for everybody, Iris.
There you go. Well, if you want to contact the show like Iris did, we can let you know how to do that.
Oh, yes. I have my shiny paper that tells me how to do that. So if you want to contact the show with a question or an idea for an episode, you can send us an email to
batcharpodcast@gmail.com,
or you can tweet us at
the Bat Cookie Jar.
We are available on Apple Podcasts, Google Play Music, Stitcher Radio, Spotify, SoundCloud, or wherever you get your podcast. Share our posts on Facebook and make sure to like our page because we want everyone to join us inside the Bat Jar. Let's let Elsa take us away.
Is this an actual Frozen song? Or?
Yeah, it's cause when we're two, I'm not Idina Menzel, I'm not gonna subject you to that, but it's from the Olaf's Frozen Adventure. They're singing, the whole plot of that movie is they're trying to find their Christmas tradition.
I've stopped caring, but
yeah. Anyway, so they're singing their Christmas tradition is being together. It's very beautiful and heartfelt. Yeah.
That's nice.
Olaf gets set on fire and attacked by wolves. It's very funny.
So we have a YouTube channel where if you like to listen to audio podcasts on YouTube, we have that option for you. And if you do choose to listen that way, we'd love if you subscribe to the channel and hit the notification button so you can be notified when new episodes go up. If you are listening to our podcast on any popular podcasting app on a smartphone, there are options to rate the show and give reviews. And that actually does a lot on the back end to make our show pop up in searches for people when they're looking for things. So if you really want to help our show succeed, even more than sharing the post on Facebook, rating the show in a podcasting application and giving reviews does a lot. So if you wouldn't mind just taking the minute or so it takes to do that, that would be great. Normally we would go into the Bat Jar and find out our topic for next week, but due to the magic of time travel, next week's episode is already been recorded, and you guys are going to hear it next week. We're finally going to talk about the comic book films of 2019, and for this episode, I was able to sit down with our good friend Asian John, who of course was the original co-host of the Bat Jar, and this will be his kind of triumphant return as a special guest. And in his case, he is a special guest coming back. Well, everyone's a special guest, but I don't know. In this case,
Are you calling me special?
Yes, you're very special.
Oh, thanks. Sorry to interrupt.
No, but all I have to say, Asian John will be back for next week's episode, and we've already recorded it, so I didn't know what it's going to sound like for you guys. He brings his classic Asian John charm and wit to the podcast and gets under my skin a couple times, so look forward to that. But Dee Dee, it's been great to have you back on the show this week. I really appreciate you. You know, you've mentioned being a busy person, and you have 3 wonderful kids and a busy life, so it's always great to get you on the show. And it's always also, for a movie like Frozen, I feel like it's probably really important to have a female perspective on this movie, because if I had probably just sat down with Dr. What or Ben the Movie Buff, it would have been probably a little different conversation.
I would definitely be interested to hear what Ben the Movie Buff thinks about Frozen, because I like the way he thinks about film. But it's always a pleasure to be on the podcast. I love it. It's super fun. I like talking about this stuff, and it's great. And you are always so generous in making your studio mobile so I can participate. So I appreciate that. And thanks for going to see the movie with us. So that was awesome.
Yeah, well, that was really fun. I was bragging about that when I was in. Like, I got to go see a movie with these people, and they're like, "What?"
On opening night.
That's true.
Yeah. So it was awesome. I think, I hope to come back sometime soon.
So until next time, when we talk about the comic book films that were released theatrically in 2019, I'm Average Joe.
And I'm Dee Dee.
Catch you on the flip side.
I don't remember what my catchphrase is.